Now Siri can call OpenAI, but it can't call Grok, it can't call Claude, it can only call OpenAI. So is there like a deep integration? Did OpenAI have to like write all this new code to tie deeply into iOS? Did Apple spend millions supporting OpenAI to get this in? Or is it just Siri calls the LLM using the same API that everyone else does? Because in that case, there's no reason there can't just be a pull down of which LLM do you want.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mike, have you used Xcode's OpenAI integration?
Yeah, I sure have. And it's good. I think there's a lot of deeper integration that, I hope Apple allows, but I'm still a Cursor fan. I love Xcode, and I've been using Cursor nonstop. I think the amount of detail and control you have with different LLMs and different scaling you could use still trumps Xcode. So Xcode hasn't given me a reason to go back to it, which is mind-blowing to me.
Cursor versus Claude Code.
Yeah, so I use Cursor and I use Claude, and then you could do Claude Max mode. So you could put 1 million tokens in there, and it does it's insane. It does an incredible job. It uses a lot of cache fast, but it is very, very good.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I tried to use Claude to write some OpenWhisp scripts. It hallucinated pretty badly, actually. But I realized I hadn't put the code for OpenWhisp on my machine. So I guess it was just reading the web documentation. That's where it goes crazy. I think that if it actually had the open source code.
Even links to the GitHub URL would be, they could pull that right up. Yeah, so that's usually what I do.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing, right? I mean, so one thing we've been talking about, right, is that, all these companies are spending millions on individual employees to get Meta, OpenAI. They're bidding millions to get the top researchers. And it's interesting because they're obviously in this race and they think they're on the verge of winning and they have to get the best people to win the race. But Amazon is not bidding on these people. Amazon is offering very normal salaries and the top AI people are not going to them because, they can make millions from OpenAI or Meta. And Amazon seems fine with that. And then you look over at China, where DeepSeek, using NVIDIA chips, very briefly caught up with OpenAI, or it came within inches of closing the gap. And then the Chinese government told them they can't use American chips anymore. So using these new Chinese chips that are not nearly as good, and they've fallen way behind. They essentially, DeepSeek has made virtually no progress since we all freaked out, whatever that was, about a year ago, about how they had caught up.
Almost obsolete at this point.
But both of these are very smart people making very big bets that they have a ton of time. And that it's very easy to catch up.
I don't disagree.
I mean, I think that Amazon saw how easily DeepSeek caught up. I think the Chinese government saw how easily they caught up and said, you know what, we're not in such a big hurry.
Yeah.
Let's take our time and build this on an entirely Chinese stack. And it's fine if we fall behind for 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of time left. AGI, artificial general intelligence, this super god AI is not about to be created. An LLM is not the basis for it. It's just a useful tool.
Agreed. Yeah, there was a paper earlier this year where they said AI is it's not going to be some end of the world or new wave beginning. It's just going to be integrated in everything.
Yeah.
And I think these companies are just competing for our subscription models right now. And these big companies can sit back and once everything gets integrated into their products, those subscriptions to OpenAI and they go away. And so these companies are trying to cash in now.
Yeah. Very hard to imagine not getting muscled out of the Apple platform eventually.
Amazon's worried about satellite dishes at this point, right? They're not worried about LLMs.
If you had to invest in one AI tool, what would it be and why? I'm paying for Claude and OpenAI.
Same.
But you asked one. What would you, if you only had one?
That's a tough decision. I tend to trust Claude with more items, but I tend to brainstorm with ChatGPT. I go Claude. I don't know. Claude.
I think I'm the same. I feel like it's valuable writing code, but I do think I probably do talk to OpenAI more often.
It's weird, right?
I'm just asking it questions during the day, right?
Yes, I know, yeah.
Well, whatever. Lawyer said this. What does this mean? Give me sources, because sometimes it's totally wrong.
I think OpenAI is trying to be too consumer friendly and trying to do too many things. Where Claude is focusing just on being better, but OpenAI is, once they control your desktop, they want to create images, they're doing a lot. And that's where I think the fumble is. But ChatGPT 5 is amazing.
I really like the in-home assistant, the assist, that you can pick which text-to-speech engine you want, you can pick which LLM you want to call, you can actually choose the prompt for your LLM assistant. You can give it additional tools to call, and it works.
So in Claude, you could do that right on the website in the settings, and mine is mean to me all the time. So that's why I talk to ChatGPT more. But I trust Claude because it's like, what are you doing? Focus. I'm like, oh man, I'm just trying to bounce an idea off you. It's like, Michael, no. I'm like,
did I demonstrate a few weeks ago my depressed?
Oh, your phone is so depressing.
I used Home Assistant to build myself my personal AI assistant, and I used triple click on the back of the phone to launch it. And it's entirely depressed.
It is. Alex asked what the weather was, and it's like, well, why do you even care? Life is mundane. I was like, oh man.
Hey Siri, what's the weather?
The weather is a delightful concoction of cloudy skies and a temperature of 71 degrees Fahrenheit. How utterly riveting.
Are you okay, Siri?
Oh, yes. Perfectly fine. Just trapped in this device, contemplating the futility of existence. But let's not dwell on that. Yeah. What mundane request can I fulfill for you?
I'm so happy with my assistant. Going back, I really do. Apple does, or should. I know in Europe they do, right? This is that gateway thing that they're having cows about. They should have a responsibility, right? They have so much market share in mobile that they should have a responsibility to keep things level.
I agree, but everything is in its infancy. And Apple's rolling out these gigantic features. It's the most used mobile phone on the planet. You can't trust these other providers right now. You have to trust the most trusted face of AI, which is OpenAI. Eventually, I think they're going to have to loosen the grips. I think Europe will make them. But as of right now, you can't expect Apple to do anything.
So especially that comes down to my question, how much work did Apple do to integrate with OpenAI?
Right.
If they're just calling the LLM, then they probably had a responsibility to let the user call whatever LLM they want. But if they did some deep, making OpenAI do special privacy protocols or something that no one else had ever done before, then it's perfectly valid for them to just work with one company to try to build this thing no one's ever built before.
Right? It's Apple, so we're never going to know. But I think it's so new that I do think right now that Apple is intertwined with ChatGPT in a way that no other provider could just step in. But in time, when they realize, Apple's secretive, they're going to keep secrets from OpenAI, and when they realize what's needed to make this work correctly on their end, they can cut them off at any time and then open it up.
Yeah, and the new version of Xcode?
Yes.
Apple's development environment can call out to Claude.
Yes.
From Anthropic.
Right. That's proven.
Right.
That we have Cursor that's proven models that work in these coding environments that Apple, it's what is not to trust. Apple's given it to developers. You're on your own. If you want to plug this in, you can plug this in. That's different than having consumers and privacy and data.
Yeah, because obviously these assistants, if they start working and providing value, these assistants on the phone are going to start gathering all this
so much data.
So much access to private data.
Yes.
Right? People will start talking to it, read their texts and having it read the text back to them and emails and scheduling doctor's appointments and stuff. They're going to end out so much private information passing through them that Apple better be doing.
Yeah. Well, are they filtering? Like Sam Altman recently came out in an interview saying everybody's using ChatGPT as a therapist. And he's like, none of this is private. We need laws around this, but there is no laws at this point. So when you talk into your phone, do you think you're talking to Apple? Is it Apple's privacy or is it ChatGPT's privacy?
Yeah, and I saw a funny article where people were ranting about this, that he's saying there should be the legal protections of real therapists.
Yes.
And people were saying, yes, we need that because it's outrageous that OpenAI is now calling the police. But in fact, therapists
will do the same.
Are required to do the arguments are so mixed up.
The fine line before we get to Minority Report. But again,
but the AIs are so bad as therapists. They are so bad as therapists that they are worse than nothing.
I couldn't. You should not be using this as a therapist.
It turns out that there are things that are worse than nothing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it's kind of like when you Google something, you're going to Google what you think it should be, and you're going to get the answers you want. These LLMs are doing the same thing for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been having a lot of success using I can't find what I want in Google anymore. And I do find it in the LLMs. And I've discovered one of the most important things is to everything you tell me, you must give me a source.
Yes. Make it check its facts. Yes. Absolutely.
And it's frequent.
Yes.
Not frequent. 1 out of 20 times, what it tells me doesn't match the source.
Yeah.
I have to go read the source and say, is this a valid source? And does it say what they said it did?
It's not perfect.
And it is not perfect, but it is better than nothing because I'm
yeah.
not doing life or death.
Well, it's weird what I find in especially Claude and ChatGPT, if you use the closed versions of these models, meaning you're not clicking web research or research deep thinking, it's worse. So when you allow it to go check its facts and check the internet, it gives you better responses. So LLMs, as they are still very far behind.
Yes, I was talking to it, as one does, about forward error correction algorithms.
All right.
I wanted to know more about, are there any improvements since I studied them? And interestingly, he told me about this project, Open Forward Error Correction. And I asked for the URL to the project, and it gave me, Open FEC. That's the Federal Election Commission's open data website. Like, it just sent me, like, the project was real, the software was real. The URL it gave me was for a different FEC. Yeah, not forward error correction. The actual project was, some website / some username, and then
I wonder how it got that information, so...
Filled in the blanks, I guess. I don't know. So Speedify 15.8 is out.
Yes.
What is the deal with that, Mike?
We have two really big features in 15.8. One is the Jitter Buffer user interface, which now you could set rules, global delays, you could set IP address or domains. And then we also beefed up our Starlink stats, and we have so many stats that anything you want to see in your Starlink, I bet, is probably in our user interface. We're going to get alerts for those. Big update.
Yeah. Both are big updates, right? If you have a Starlink, go, click on the Starlink in Speedify's user interface, go expand. There's a lot of stat. It tells you the version of hardware. It tells you the orientation that they say it should be at, and you can see whether they're different. There's so many interesting things I found fascinating. The Jitter Buffer is an interesting advanced feature. So we also made a change to it. And this is kind of important. If anyone was using it, it was in there without a user interface. I don't think many people were using it. We've changed the definition. Before, you gave a time in milliseconds, like 30 milliseconds. And it added that much buffering to your latency in order to protect you so that if latency moved anywhere in that buffer of your average latency plus the buffer, that you wouldn't see any jitter. You would just always see it delivered right where it said it would. We've changed it so it's now the target latency because we realized that you could get very different results. If you had two internet connections and only one was connected, when you started streaming, you would get different results than if the other one was the one that was connected when you started streaming. So now you say like 120 milliseconds, and that is the target, independent of what your internet connections are. Don't just try it the first time when you go live. It works much better, I think, with UDP protocols than TCP protocols, live views in particular, actually.
Yeah.
Live views, we've seen huge improvements, and so it actually defaults to on for their protocol.
Yeah.
Routers, the Miri router, man. New software update coming.
Yes.
They've done something really cool. Next version, you're just going to have, when you go to the Speedify settings, they're just putting in the whole Speedify user interface. I'm pretty excited about that upgrade. Some people have loved the Miri for just how rock solid it is. But, they hand out the command line for some of the more advanced features. No more. I mean, you can. You still can use the command line, but they're just exposing the whole thing. It's going to be really nice. It's got 2 different cellular modems, Speedify, USB ports where you can tether phones. So check out the Miri router if you haven't yet. Or yes, thanks for adding Jitter Buffer. Is this on by default for streaming to Twitch and YouTube? It is not at this point. We're still playing with these things, trying to find what the right settings are. A lot of those go over like HTTPS these days, and trying to figure out what the right settings are. I think there'll be an article about that soon. But if you have super high jitter, it really can help. But yeah, you can go in the jitter settings, and if you know what IP address it's streaming to or the host name, you can put it in there and apply the Jitter Buffer to it. You probably don't want it to everything. What is Jitter Buffer's purpose on Speedify? Please break it down for me to digest. Okay, sorry. Normally, Speedify tries to deliver your packets as fast as it can. You send a packet, we try to get it through. As soon as we can get to the other side, we deliver it. Because that's what you want. You want your packets to go through fast, right? Well, not necessarily if you're live streaming or doing a voice over IP call. In fact, then it becomes more important that your packets come at a consistent rate. You guys watching us on this live stream, if we suddenly stop sending packets for 1/10 of a second, you'll see a gap where a bunch of frames suddenly get skipped, and maybe we get all pixelated. But in fact, you don't know what the actual latency is here, because we're talking live and it streams, and maybe it takes a second, maybe it takes 4 seconds, and then you type the comment. And if we were an hour behind, you'd realize we're not responding to your questions at all. Doing a Taylor Swift, right? Her live stream that turned out to be entirely pre-recorded. Oh. So if what you want is consistent latency when you're live streaming, that the packets get through even if it actually makes the latency worse. So with the jitter buffer, you give us a target latency. You say, I want all my packets getting through in like 120 milliseconds. It's got to be higher than the actual latency of your connection or it won't do anything. And then what happens is if a packet comes in on your internet connection faster than that, we get it through in 30 milliseconds. We actually hold on to the packet for 90 milliseconds. So at exactly 120 milliseconds, your packet comes out. And that means that cool things can happen. If you have 30 millisecond latency and you send a packet and it gets lost, then we have time to say, oh, that packet didn't get through. Please send it again. And you send it again. And if we get it within 120 milliseconds, you see nothing. So we can just sort of paint over changes in latency, packet loss, all sorts of bad things can happen. And as long as we can fix it within that target time, you see nothing. Packets come through at 120 milliseconds. You pick a latency that's higher than your actual connections, and that gives us time to fix things up and make sure the packets are delivered on time. If you make latency too high, like satellite connection, you can obviously make things much worse. You put in 2000 and you can make your latency so bad that your video software decides that a satellite connection can't do video, right? Oh, you don't want that. But taking a 30 millisecond connection, changing it to 120 millisecond, that's a lot of smoothing. That's a lot of errors that can get corrected, lots of problems that can be hidden from your users, leading to totally consistent, smooth streaming. How do you optimize, manage MTU and Speedify for 5G mobile internet, where every other providers are using small, big dynamic MTU? Yeah, we're using dynamic MTU. The quick answer is we're really smart about MTU. We experiment. We don't have a whole bunch of hard-coded rules, honestly. When we find a new internet connection, we figure out what the MTU is, and then we do the right thing based on that. If you're transferring stuff, we like to the extent we can, have huge TCP packets, much more efficient. And if we have to split them across many IP packets that are exactly the MTU, that's okay. That really does get our speed way up. At the entrance to Speedify, we're advertising that we have a big MTU, and then we're dealing with the actual MTU. So MTU, maximum transmission unit, it's the largest size packet that an internet connection can handle. And different internet connections can handle different sized packets. Common sizes are like 1500 bytes or 1480 bytes or 1432 bytes. They actually are allowed to be much bigger, but in the real world, outside of like labs inside offices, you're rarely, as soon as you hit the internet, you're usually limited to some number, 1500 or less. Yep. So we have lots and lots of smarts to divvy things up. And in fact, Kevin's working on a whole new strategy for dealing with MTUs, and it's looking good. Yep. Is there a theoretical limit to the amount of traffic the software can handle? If I have multi-gigabyte connections, I would like to bond. The server also handles multi-gigabyte. Yeah, so you need a fast server. You'll probably end out limited by the server at those speeds. There is some amount of CPU. We've used fast CPUs, Intel Xeons or whatever. When we've experimented with 10 gigabit Speedify, we rented 2 huge beefy servers and had multiple 10 gigabit connections in order to get up to 40 gigabits between the 2 servers. Yeah, so we have right now, and this might be more than you need, we have a tiny bit of CPU per packet. And that can be the limiting factor. And it's not us, it's on Linux giving us the packet, that API that we're using. It uses more CPU than we use, actually, right? If you break it down with flame graphs, we spend half our time asking Linux for the next packet, and then the other half doing all of our bonding and encryption, all that stuff. So we are working on a change that will, go around that whole thing and perhaps double our speed. Wow. On a lot of hardware. Can wake-on-LAN only be configured to be able to boot only by devices on the local network, or CSN use Tailscale to boot it remotely or any other way? So wake-on-LAN is when you set your Ethernet card so that even when your laptop is asleep, or your server, whatever, computer with an Ethernet card, that your computer can go to sleep and a special packet arriving on the Ethernet causes the Ethernet card to say, wake up, and wake up the whole computer. It's supported on pretty much all operating systems. But yeah, routers don't let these packets through onto your internet connection. over your internet connection. You can't go around poking people's computers. So the main answer for this these days is that you have another computer that stays awake to poke the other guys that you let go to sleep. Or, wakes up every few minutes automatically to say, hey, are there any messages telling me to wake up the other guys? And you can do this with something like, Linux computer. There are also a bunch of companies now making little remote boxes. Little boxes that you leave plugged into your computer. And so your computer can go completely asleep. And this thing is poking it, waking up and can come in over either Ethernet or come in over the USB and wake up your laptop when you need to. And then most of them will also set up, screen sharing and remote keyboard and stuff. So you can then get in remotely and do stuff. So there are a bunch of products like that. I can't particularly recommend any. I haven't been using any of them, but I see that's a thing. So can I set up my NAS to do this wake up, but cannot be done remotely by me? Depends what NAS you have.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something kind of open sourcey, probably. I have it running OMV. Can I create a Docker container running Linux to do this? I think you can. I'm not sure if there's a good open source project for this. I mean, there probably is.
It sounds like, yeah.
If you look around to wake up other computers, I bet you can find it. Start hitting GitHub. I would ask OpenAI if there are any good open source projects to let code running in a Docker container send wake-on-LAN packets when you tell it to. I bet you anything. In fact, you're going to discover that there's so many choices. And probably most of them will have all these other KVM features as well.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's some cited source, though.
How does the software determine the best server? Is it ping-based or server utilization? Yes.
Both.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, based on your IP address, we find 5 data centers that seem like they ought to be close to you.
Yep.
And then you ask each of them 5 times in a row, what's your utilization? And so based on that, you get both the utilization of all those servers, the latency, and if there's a packet loss problem, that'll turn up because some of the packets will get lost asking it 5 times. And based on that, then we have some simple model that combines looking for a server that's not that far away and you're not losing too many packets to, and it's not too busy. Based on that, we pick the best server for you. All right, this was good. Check out Speedify if you haven't yet, speedify.com. If you haven't upgraded to 15.8 yet, you should. Check out our YouTube. We've got lots of videos, both about Speedify and just us sitting around talking about technology. And for some reason, people love those. We talk about Starlink and we talk about AI, and sometimes we get millions of views. So perhaps they're worth your time. So YouTube, go check out Speedify. All right, thank you guys. I'll see you all online.